Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of book-loving nerds rereading Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. From book 1 to book 16 million, we'll be uncovering every secret connection there is to find. Today we are joined by Swiggity Swoo,
the one and only
John.
I got aliens on my shirt.
Kay.
TenSoon is back.
Yes, he is.
And yes, he is. And I'm ReaderWarrior, and today we're Mistborn, Hero of Ages, Part 5, Trust, chapters 59 through 63. It is 59, correct?
Correct.
Yes, it is.
It is indeed.
Oh no. Pressure.
It's just I have the paper looking at the format, which only gives me the intro, so I'm like, it was 2 chapters before my chapters. That makes it 50. I end on 63, so like...
Gotta do some mental math.
Exactly.
Arithmetist over here.
That's a different book.
It also is not math, really.
Well,
I guess
it's
it's geometry. Yeah,
It's geometry.
kind of.
Which-
Yeah.
Which is just circular math.
Mhm.
Or
Okay.
square
Polar
math.
coordinates.
Let's talk about
Speaking of
Mistborn.
geometry, let's circle back.
John, I believe you had 59.
I do, and now I'm scared. All right. So, TenSoon arrives in Urto and marvels, not marbles, at the changes of the city. Apparently, I didn't know how to type that morning.
Did you want to talk about the epigraph at all?
Oh, I never did go and copy
This one
that
was
over.
very focused on humans, so I'm very surprised you skipped that.
I never went back and even looked at it. I totally forgot to do that. Give me 1 second. Okay. So it basically is our mysterious narrator, who we don't have figured out yet, totally don't have figured out yet, pontificating about what goes on in the minds of Kolos, what memories they retained, what human emotions they truly still knew. I do know that our discovery of the one creature who named himself human was tremendously fortunate. Without his struggle to become human again, we might never have understood the link between Kolos, hemalurgy, and the Inquisitors. Of course, there was another part for him to play. Granted, not large, but still important, all things considered.
Okay.
Still having a part to play.
Are we saying that human is Gollum?
Just for the purposes of that epigraph, yes.
Do you want me
Yeah,
to,
heard it here
now that we talked about it previously when we first met human, but would you guys like me to state in the now spoiler, since it's not really a spoiler, would you like me to give the backstory of human real quick, since it's in Brandon's annotations for this, so never really in the story?
I'd like to know.
Yeah, sure.
So, human, originally known as Vershad, was a Scar rebel living outside the borders of the Final Empire.
You said his name was Rashad?
Vershad,
Oh,
Vershad. He was a Scar rebel in the same area where clubs fought in his youth. He was charismatic and intelligent, keeping his band alive when the Lord Ruler began to turn his attention to them. However, the Lord Ruler sent a Kolos army against him, and with the aid of Inquisitor, they sent an ambush, as well as betraying the rebels. That's weird. Vershad's men were slaughtered, and he himself was turned into a Kolos.
Okay.
Never information you will get.
Unless you go on the internet.
Yes.
Unless you go look through the annotations that Sanderson has posted for every single chapter of this book.
Which we have not been looking at, and that bothered me a tiny bit.
Well, get
Yeah.
ready for Vershad, A Secret History.
Hey, I would read it.
Coming to a blog post near you.
We know you would.
All right, so TenSoon, marveling at the city, both at how it has been burned and how the canals are flowing with water again. He goes to a ministry building that has Ellen's symbols outside and speaks to the guard, even though he's wearing his doggy body, which gets him not only some looks, but gives him a little thrill of messing with these people, like he's having fun with it. Never say a Condor doesn't have a sense of humor.
He even like cocks his head like a dog. He played it.
He totally did. But eventually the guards let him through to talk to Breeze, who is acting as kind of, a judge or a magistrate, kind of settling disputes and things like that. Which gives TenSoon a little bit of a pause, because he remembers about soothers being able to take over Kandra bodies. And then he's like, wait a minute. This is the modern day. They're not that powerful anymore. And, kind of relaxes a little bit, Then go to see Sazed, who is not acting himself, but TenSoon doesn't really take the time to worry about it because Sazed informs TenSoon that the Emperor and Empress are on the other side of the continent in Fadrax. Le poop. TenSoon tells Sazed why he's looking for them, and Sazed offers provisions for the journey immediately, which shocks TenSoon because he knows exactly how interested Sazed is in religions and mystical, archaic information and the like. So, and that's where it leaves off. Fairly short and sweet.
Cool. I liked TenSoon's arrival to this city, where he sees kind of the hope that the people have now, because like he's getting there and he's talking about these burned out buildings and how almost 1/3 of the city has been reduced to ash, but the people see it as a victory that the fire didn't consume the whole place. And it's kind of cool, right? Because it's like the third time we're being introduced to this city. Like the first time is when Spook gets there, and then the second time is when Sazed and Breeze arrive. And so we're just seeing like the progression of what's been happening in Urto this whole time. And it's a good way of confirming like how everything turned out after these past couple parts with what Spook did and how it actually affected the people.
If I remember correctly, when they first arrived, they commented how the people seemed broken and like there was a giant lead blanket over everybody. But now, with the city half destroyed, they seem to be free.
Yeah, I remember everyone was like wearing gray cloths and stuff because like obviously Quellion was forcing everyone to act as ska as possible.
That's illegal.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting that in this chapter, because we see it from TenSoon's point of view, and like TenSoon knows Breeze and Sazed and Spook. Like he knows who these people are, but like none of them know him.
Mm-hmm.
Which he kind of comments on, and he's like, oh yeah, like this is kind of weird. Like I know you, and I know how you're gonna react, and I feel like we're friends because I know you really well, but you don't know me at all.
They still think he's Orsier.
Right, Breeze actually calls him out as being Orsur, by referring to him as
Renew,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which was kind of clever on his part to think that, because it almost was, the fact that he even put that together in the first place was kind of impressive to me. But then obviously he wouldn't know, like, they got switched.
Right.
Yeah.
But like,
so it's.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. It's just, I find it a little bit strange that Vin never talked about that at all. Like, what happened to her Kandra?
I mean, she might have said that she sent him away.
Yeah, I guess not. She never.
Yeah, I don't remember.
She never came back and told them, like, by the way, the craziest stuff has been happening.
Yeah.
So this whole time, my dog has been.
People.
Yeah. It was like so funny in this chapter when TenSoon first gets there and he's like being a talking dog to people.
Actually really loved how the first words this conjurer speaks, the first conjurer to not have a contract, to be out in the world, is "I have no master." The first words this race of basically servants, even more so than the terrorists ever were, he's the first, and those are his first words.
Mm-hmm.
That was super
love
cool.
that.
Because, like, coming from a dog, like, that in itself is a statement. I'm a dog with no master. But you're right, like, it has that double meaning. That's so sick.
We get confirmation that Spook is alive, albeit barely.
Yeah, he's not doing so good.
And yeah.
Yeah, he's struggling, which is fair. He did almost get burned alive, so you know.
Yeah.
That's a story for another chapter.
And I had two questions. One is more grounded, one is more... The first one is, TenSoon says, like, oh, that'll take me weeks, even with the Blessing of Potency, to get to Phaedric City. Assuming he switches into a horse's... I'm guessing that would be faster. If somehow he were to have a cheetah's bones, cheetahs being the fastest animal, but a cheetah can only run at their top speed for a couple of minutes. Otherwise, their brains will literally fry in their head. Could a Kandra run at that top speed permanently, considering they don't have internal organs?
Well, but they still have.
Well,
like,
they do have internal organs, but they have
Yeah.
better
But they-
control over them. So
but they
he
don't have a
could
brain.
he could potentially regulate his body better. That would depend on his, I guess, skill in fleshcraft, if you will. But I think a much more suitable animal would be like some kind of bird. Just go flappy flappy.
Really big bird.
It would have to be a fairly big bird, yeah.
Law of conservation of mass and everything.
Well, gee, bird.
That's interesting because so far what we've seen is besides Conjure using like fancy bones, we've only seen like one-to-one, I think, representations of things. Like a conjurer will take over a person and become that person, or take over a dog and become that dog. Like, you know, we might have more to say in this in the spoiler section, but like right now, the conjurers aren't like going in and saying like, well, what if we took this aspect from this creature and this aspect from that creature and they made like a hybrid? But I think theoretically it would be possible to add like a coolant system or of some kind.
Yeah. But also, like, we have to remember at this point, the Conjure, that is a very Mistwraith thing to do. To take different parts of different creatures and
This is true.
make them into your body. And a Conjure is a grown-up Mistwraith, so we can't be doing what the Mistwraiths are doing. We are more mature than that. We're more sophisticated than that. We're not going to do that.
Actually, now that you mention that, they're kind of more like evolved by, you know, brass stone, if you will.
Yeah. It's a Pokemon evolution.
Yeah, yeah.
It's an Eevee.
Thanks for explaining that to me. I was so lost.
Actually, it's a Mistwraith is totally a Ditto.
Oh
True.
yeah, 100%.
It just has that derpy face too.
But okay, like what you said makes perfect sense to me now that I'm thinking about it, because like he didn't even want to be a dog. He was offended by that pretty heavily.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so are all of the other Kandra. Even like when he mentions that even like Mei Lin, who is considered one of the like more like progressive Kandra, was still like aghast that he was in the bones of a dog. That he wore those bones. Like she was like, "Oh my gosh, that's terrible." Like,
what have they done to you?
Don't knock it till you try it, Milan.
My second question, TenSoon remarks that Kandra are trained to avoid keepers. considering what we learned in a bit of a later chapter, could it be that Kandra is Old Terrace for the word keeper?
I like that.
I
I like that, but I don't think that would be the case because of the fact that Sazed does know Old Terrace.
Okay.
And he knows the language of Old Terrace, and that language is still around.
But does he know the Helleni language?
Yes,
Okay.
because he translated the
Oh, yeah.
Kalan's manuscript.
Alendi's logbook.
Yeah.
Sazed knows over like 300 different languages, I think.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of figure out where did the Kandra term. Maybe it means shapeshifter or something. I don't know. That's
Maybe
always
the-
just been
Maybe
one
the Lord
question.
Ruler just made it up.
Yep.
Well, it sounds
Anything
almost
else? Sorry.
like what was I gonna say? To conjure something. So
Oh,
maybe that's how Brandon came up with it.
Maybe.
I like it.
I've heard crazier things.
Anything else for chapter 59? Okie dokie. Kay, did you have the next chapter?
I do have the next chapter. And so in the epigraph, we learn a little bit more about Preservation's prison that he made for Ruin. So it was created through Preservation's consciousness. And he essentially kind of used his consciousness to create the prison and left the shade of himself was left over. And he left his power in the world so that the men and the people could still use it, so that the humans could still use it, his power, and to essentially put his faith in mankind, and that they would be able to do what needed to be done to get rid of Ruin.
I love
That he couldn't do.
Sorry. I love the concept of people believe in God. That is faith. That is religion. I love the reversal of God having to have faith in people, in mankind. I love that concept.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of see that a lot in these books of people like taking on responsibility in that way. You know, even the Dark God, Ruin, had to have Vin release the power and is controlling like all of these forces. Like they, at least what we've seen in Ruin, you know, can't just directly go in and do whatever they want. Like they have to put their power and their influence into people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so this chapter. So we're back to Vin. She is still locked up in prison, and she is thinking to herself, like, Yeoman has put in a lot of work in this prison for me, and it seems like he wants me to try to escape because he's trying to make it so that I can't escape. So I'm going to give it to him. I'm going to give him what he wants, and I'm going to try to escape, even though I know that I'm probably not going to be able to. So she ends up knocking out a few guards, and then she sees that she's like overwhelmed and gets taken upstairs. And again, she is able to kind of throw them off and wriggle out of her handcuffs, and she goes for Yolen because she decides that she can either try to grab him and use him as a hostage to get out, or grab the bead of ATM off of his head to have metal so that she can get out. And she goes for Yolen, and he dodges her. And she tries to go for him again, and he dodges her again. And she's like, wait a second. He is burning ATM.
Oh no, we totally didn't know that.
Which we already knew because we saw that in the Ellen Ball chapter a while ago. But Yolen is burning ATM.
Do you think if
So,
Vin
it
had her pewter, she could have taken him on? Because she beat Zane, who had ATM.
But it was in a one-on-one battle with no one else around, where essentially she didn't really have a time limit as much. With this, she had a very short amount of time that she could act on against Yolen, because there are all the guards in the room as well. Like, the only reason the guards weren't coming after her was because they were like, what's going on? They were surprised, and they had all hit the ground when she threw the screws at them. Which is honestly very smart and very clever of her.
Right?
Especially when they all plink and do nothing. By the way, we brought back Haze Killers, which I've missed, because Haze Killers, even the name is awesome. There were 24 guards. She knocked out, stepped into a room, and then there are 20 guys just staring at her, which is quite a lot.
I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, what are the Haze
It's not
Killers?
enough.
Like, what do they do most of the time? Because there's like 2 Mistborn in the
Get
whole
killed.
world. Like, do they go to Haze Killer school? It's been tough finding a job, Mom, but
They're not just trained to fight Mistborn. They're also trained to fight regular Allomancers as well, which are much more common.
Yeah, but they're still kind of the high fantasy equivalent to red shirts. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is actually the only time a Haze Killer has really done their job when the Mistborn has
Right?
no medals.
Yeah, I would say it kind of helped that she didn't have any medals on her.
Hey, we can take her when she's a...
She's just a little girl.
Okay, so Yolen and her decide to. She decides that she's gonna talk to Yolen to figure out what he actually wants, because she realizes she's not gonna get out. She's not gonna be able to escape right now, with him being able to burn ATM. So he decides to start questioning her because he's like, I'm gonna make my decision about whether or not to execute you. And he asks her about why did she come to Frederick City, and she tells him honestly. She's very straightforward with him. She tells him about the storage caverns, that they knew about those, and that they would have eventually needed to come here anyway because of a promise that Alendi made to Set. And that they were planning to try diplomacy first, but we know that wasn't gonna work. So Yolen essentially takes from that they came to the city because they were afraid of the Lord Ruler's power, which I don't really understand. It's okay, whatever, dude. You got there in your own way. And so Yolen also asks her about the Church of the Survivor and about her role in the church. And she talks about how the Ska worship her, but she's not really comfortable with it. She doesn't feel like that's what should be her role in it. And Yolen is just kind of why would you worship someone who was killed? Why would you want to worship the survivor who died, who was killed by my god, who he is convinced is very much still alive.
Ironic.
Oh. And Ben is just like, yeah, no, he's dead. I stabbed him. I'm so sorry. Like, blunt Ben. Gotta love her. So
I do love, like, she painstakingly goes through the details of that fateful night. Like, oh, this is
yeah.
what happened. Like,
She almost gives too much information. She's like, she talks about her imprisonment, Ellen saving her. Like, she
And
gives.
he's listening. He listens to her because he
Mhm.
genuinely wants to know what happened. He is, and he's not like
because he can't
going
believe it.
to. Well, he believes it to some extent. He believes that these things happened, but he doesn't believe that they resulted in the death of his god.
Mhm.
He believes that like everything that she says actually did occur, but in the instance where she thought that she thought that she killed the Lord Ruler, he doesn't believe that she actually was able to, that he faked his death. That's what he believes.
Mhm.
It's cool how he's kind of
He
like,
thinks, Vin thinks she killed the Lord, but he believes that she got tricked.
Yes, correct.
kind of like the opposite of where Sazed is at, where he's like seeing the facts, but his faith won't let him like fully believe them. Where Sazed is like wanting to believe, but the facts are like stacked against it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so Yeoman is like thinking through his head because he's trying to figure out where she fits in with the Lord Ruler's plan. Why did he want the Lord? Why did the Lord Ruler want Vin to think that she killed him? Like, and Vin eventually comes up with this idea. I don't know if she necessarily believes it or not. It's kind of ambiguous. Is that she's not the heir of the survivor, she's the heir of the Lord Ruler, and this is what she tells Yeoman. Is that she has been the one she is now the Lord in the Lord Ruler's position. Because she's the one who took his place and the Lord Ruler is gonna come back. And that's what she tells him. He's like, nah, that's not true.
She kind of is though,
And
right? Because she like took the power at the well. Like,
it is. Because she did also the power at the Well of Ascension. So she killed the Lord Ruler. She took the power at the Well of Ascension. She has been the driving force to form the new empire. She is the one who's been like
Conquering.
doing the conquering of the empire
she's controlling
and
Colas
forcing it.
and Kandra.
Yeah.
I want to see Vin in the same suit that Rashek had. That black and white suit. I want to see Vin in that now. Just as like have her realize I am the Lord Ruler's heir and like cut to her like doing things like the Lord Ruler did. Like
Yeah.
standing in the throne wearing the suit, regenerating or whatever. Like I want to see that a tiny bit.
Yeah. So she eventually does realize that Yeoman's not gonna kill her. Like he's not gonna kill her right now because he doesn't know. He doesn't want to do something that might go against what the Lord Ruler would want him to do. So he's not gonna kill her. He's gonna keep her in prison, but he's not going to kill her yet because he doesn't know where she fits. And they talk about how Vin Yomen wants Vin to tell Ellen to. And Vin is like, we can't do that because we came here for the food in your storage cavern. That's why we came here. We need it to help with central dominance. We have enough light to grow plants. We can grow plants in the central dominance. We need at least your seed stock. But we can't. And he's like, trade me for it. And we're like, she's like, you won't talk to us.
He's like, oh yeah, I forgot I did that.
And eventually it becomes implied. Yomen ends up implying that he has the ATM in the ATM stock hidden away. But his kind of response is that the ATM is useless to him because you can't feed people with lumps of metal, which is true. And then Vin gets taken back to her prison. That's kind of where it ends.
So there was a comment Vin had when she was him, where she's like, wait, he's kind of like me. Granted, not raised as a ska, but the same mannerisms, sort of the controlling, understanding part, that's sort of like me.
Mhm.
And she wonders if that's what she would have been like. And we've also know that in another life, she could have been a ska noble. Do you think Vin was more likely to be an obligator or a noblewoman?
Well, her father was an obligator. But I actually don't know if the obligators took women.
That's what I was also thinking. Like, I feel like Vin could have very easily been an obligator, sort of like a Thrawn character, to use a Star Wars reference. But I don't think we've ever had an example of obligator, so I think it was a patriarchal sorry, organization.
It's a weird word to try and say.
Male-led.
Like yeah, there you go.
I want the alternate universe fanfic where Vin became an obligator.
I'm gonna look that.
It should be a powerful one
And,
for
like,
sure.
Plate had to fight against Kelsier.
Be interesting.
There was a line that made me laugh. It's Ruin had grown bored. So I'm just imagining him like just tapping his hands or like looking around. Oh, this is very nice. The line made me laugh.
I did love like Ruin just standing off in the corner. This secret god, like, and the irony of the whole situation, like, he's asking her questions that as the same time as him, and then she like answers them both. Like, that was such a cool moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Or the fact that he's inquiring about there's one right there.
which is again the same thing that like happens to Sazed in my chapter, where he's like, he knows that Ruin can alter the text, yet he still like refuses to believe in this stuff. It's just kind of crazy, like the power that what you want to believe holds over you.
John, do you have anything for this chapter?
Not that hasn't been covered already. I mean, Ruin watching the conversation is kind of hilarious.
It's awesome.
Okay. I have chapter 61. Basically, this person... I don't wonder that we focused far too much on the mist during those days, but from what I know of sunlight and plant development, what I now know, I realized that our crops weren't in as much danger in misty days as we feared. We might very well have been able to find plants to eat that did not need as much light to survive. Wow, my handwriting is horrid. True, the mist did also cause some deaths in those who went out in them, but the number killed was not a large enough percentage of the population to be a threat to our survival as a species. The ash, that was our real problem. The smoke filling the atmosphere, the black flakes covering up everything beneath, the eruptions of the volcanic ash mounds, those were what would kill the world. We do really see in the next couple chapters that ash becomes a huge problem.
I think at first glance that epigraph seems random or just kind of like dismissible. But then I think on retrospect, you think about the themes of the book and like where the mist comes from. You start to be like, oh, okay.
Also, I did find a word of Brandon about the obligators because I was curious. And it says that there are lots of female keepers. There were no female inquisitors or obligators, since the Lord Ruler is pretty much in charge of who got to do both. However, there weren't actually hard and fast rules. So a determined woman could end up being in the Steel Ministry if she put her mind to it.
Somebody write a fanfic about Vin breaking top steel obligator.
What'd you say? Maybe cut out a little bit.
Yeah, you've been cutting out quite a bit.
Did I cut out on my entire reading?
No.
Okay. Somebody write the fanfic where Vin breaks the steel ceiling.
Steel ceiling. That was worth it.
Anything else about the epigraph?
Nope.
Okay. Hammond greets Elend as he returns back to the camp. He's impressed at the number of Colas Elend brought back, and possibly at the fact that Elend did return alive. Ham updates him on Vin's imprisonment, and Elend realizes she must still be alive if her Colas are still under control. Elend is also then given reports on the central dominance. Cities have fallen, people are starving, ash is suffocating everything, and even some places have vanished into earthquakes and lava flows. Everything seems to be going badly. Ham asks Elend what they should do, and Elend answers saying they will help them, but later. Elend leaves to change his blood-stained attire and bumps into Set. He asks what the plan is, and Elend reflects on the Mist Spirit's warnings. But they need that cash, they need Vin, and Elend needed to make the hard decision. He orders Set to prepare the soldiers for an attack in the morning. Uh-oh.
Execute Order 66.
Is that really the whole chapter?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really short
That's
chapter.
really short.
This is definitely like kind of the wind-up pitch for the up-and-coming Sanderlanche. Like, this is like
I guess so.
the pieces are all like moving into position. Everything is getting tense. It's about to happen. Boom. Yeah.
Let me quickly check. Okay, we still gotta... okay.
So Elend is
Never mind.
Elend is no Kaladin. Like, when he comes back, you know, he can see in Ham's eyes that there was doubt. He was gonna make it back.
Yeah. Either... Yeah.
I also thought it was funny when Elend told Ham that some of the Colas were under Vin's control and that they would have gotten loose if she died. And he's like, well, that would have been earlier.
Yeah, right. And now I need clean underwear.
You might warned us of that, mate.
I spent this whole time panicking that they were going to attack it at any minute.
All right, well, if we don't have much to say about that, should I go?
Feel free.
By all means.
Epigraph. I suspect that Alendi, the man Rashik killed, was himself a misting, a seeker. Allomancy, however, was a different thing in those days and much more rare. The Allomancers alive in our day are the descendants of the men who ate those few beads of preservation's power. They formed the foundation of the nobility and were the first to name Rashik emperor. The power in those few beads was so concentrated that it could last through 10 centuries of breeding and inheritance. So I saw in your notes, reader, that you were pretty excited by the idea that Alendi was a seeker.
Yes, I thought that was really cool. I think the fact that he heard the thumping, that's very nice. And I have more to talk about that in the spoiler section. What I was really excited about was the fact we now learned about what that metal was that Vin ingested. It's literally a bead of preservation.
That Ellen ingested.
That Ellen ingested, yes. And that apparently 10 generations ago, Rashek gave to a bunch of other people.
That would be the metal I'd be looking for. Forget atium.
Right. Also, it's weird. It feels weird for them to use the word ate. They ate the metal. Even though that's what they do, like, it's just weird to hear it that way, because we always talk about, they always talk about them swallowing the metal. Not that they are eating it, because they don't digest it, they burn it. And it's subtly different, and that word choice is very jarring there. Or very stark, I guess I should say. It's just totally different, and it always sounds strange to my ear.
Yeah. Well, these were the first people to ever do it, so I imagine they had a very different reaction to a bead of metal.
They used to chew
being
it.
asked to, like, yeah,
right.
Am I supposed to let it dissolve? To crunch it? No, I just swallow. And how did Rashek explain? Now burn it. What do you mean? Burn it. I swallowed it, sir. No, burn it.
Just burn it. I still don't know how Brandon came up with that idea. Like, sincerely.
It's because he's a genius and probably also just a little bit crazy.
A little bit?
Well, you know how close those two things tend to, stick together.
Yeah.
But mostly the genius part.
Yes.
All right, so Spook is still unconscious and hurt. Sazed confirms that he's not able to burn pewter by giving him some and nothing happening. Beldred visits him every day. Quellion has begun to act as himself again. Sazed feels guilty that he isn't hopeful about Spook's recovery, only caring that he is not a pewter arm, reaffirming his worldview. He sits down to finish his work and searching for contradicting information about the faiths he has studied. Sazed feels numb after searching for a year through every religion, and one by one discounting them all as implausible. He recounts how many of them have similar ideology, such as denouncing in other religions, proclaiming love while threatening destruction to non-believers, but above all else, as the lack of explanation over tragedy and loss on the part of the faithful. Feeling ultimate depression at having finished rejecting every religion known to the Keepers, Sazed retrieves the book he and Tyndall made together in their search for the hero of ages. Sazed feels betrayed by divinity itself. He wants to say it would be better to not believe in anything than to believe in a god that failed him so epically. He finds within the pages of the text a picture of a flower, the very same that Kelsier's wife had kept to give herself hope, to remind her there was once a world without ash so long ago as to slip beyond history and the records of man and of keepers. Surrounded by ominous red light from the setting sun, Sazed calls out to God directly, asking why he should be left faithless in this final hour, after all he has done in the name of God. He realizes that his faith ultimately left him most vulnerable of all. God does not answer his prayers. It seems there never was a God to answer the call in the first place. Until he hears Breeze's pampered noble affectation questioning TenSoon, who apparently is leaving in search for Vin. As he prepares to burn the tome he has given his life and the past year to, he remembers his own words to Vin after the death of the survivor. Belief isn't simply a thing for fair times and bright days. What is faith if you don't continue in it after failure? Before throwing away the book, a symbol of his devotion to faith, the last vestige of all he believes in, he silently asks for one more sign. I want to believe. I really do. I just need something. In the hallway, he
Tell the
hears-
announcer goodbye.
Exactly. Exactly that. And recognizing the term as being one of the passages Ruin altered during the Well of Ascension to trick the crew into realizing the power at the well, or releasing, sorry, Sazed freezes. Sazed questions TenSoon about the original role of the Holy Announcer. Do we want to make any comments here?
Okay, yeah, let's stop and go everything before this, because we're going to have a lot to talk about.
That's me in the corner.
Yeah.
That's me in the spotlight, losing my religion. Poor Sazed.
Yes.
He's going through it right now.
He is.
I like how Quellion is fixed now, in that basically when you don't have a hate-spewing god whispering in your ear, you're basically sane.
That is cool.
I love-
because Spook was like promising to Beldre that he wasn't going to kill him, and he did. Like, he saved her brother. It's awesome.
Mhm. The little comment Sazed had about, she's already in love. They've only known each other for like a week now, and I'm like, Sazed, Vin and Ellen fell in love in like a day. This is Disney level of love. This is more than Disney. This is perfectly fine.
Yeah, the life expectancy was a lot shorter back then, unless you were a conjurer. You know, take what you can get.
That's pretty much all my notes before the great reveal.
I just love, like, he opens the book. It's Tyndall's handwriting, you know, he sees it. And then the flower that Mare used to carry around. It's just like all these super, super symbolic things happening at once. Like, right as the world's about to explode. Like, the red light from the setting sun. Like, oh, it's just so cool. It's so crisp in my imagination.
Maybe like the ghost of Tindawil is like at that moment trying to hold him out for 1 second longer, like pulling away the flames, waiting for TenSoon to say that word.
He's like, oh, and give the holy announcer my regards.
Wait,
The holy what?
what?
Yeah, I can just imagine like Sazed like running out, like, what did you just say?
Slam it. What did you just say?
So Sazed questions TenSoon about the original role of the holy announcer. TenSoon throws Sazed a bone by mentioning that nobody
I see what you did.
ever
Sorry.
figured out what happened to the original Terrace Packman that traveled with Rashik. Thought to be the first nobleman Mistborn, Sazed realizes that they would have been ferrochemist allomancers, the one thing the Lord Ruler was terrified of, the one thing that could challenge his ultimate power.
Oh, this blew my mind so much. I can remember slamming the book on the desk and slamming my head and being like, oh my gosh, how was I so stupid?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
of course they were. That whole time we were told they were the Roshek's friends. But wait a second, those were oh my gosh, I'm an idiot.
It was right there in front of me the whole time.
It was there the whole time. This is like mind blow number 1 of this book.
Well, I'd hardly say it's the first one, but it is quite powerful.
Right? This is the biggest boom so far.
Just
Yeah.
because you feel it does make you feel dumb, and it also makes you question like how nobody in the world thought of this either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no one besides the crew knew that Rashik was also a ferrochemist.
But then the analytical, Elend the book analyzing, Sazed the religion noticing, nobody noticed the tiny little detail.
Until TenSoon was
But
like,
why would
you guys
they?
never really thought about that, did you?
Why would they even need to know that? Why would they even need to think about that? Because it happened so long ago that the Lord Ruler's dead. Is it that important to know what happened to the Pac-Man?
No, but it's just it was there right in front of us. And reading, like, I think the first time it's really brought to your face is at the end of Well of Ascension when they're talking about Ellen now being Mistborn. He's like, well, now we know what happened with Rashek's friends and where the Allomancers came from. You must have given that out. And I'm just like, how is it so obvious?
So
How is it so obvious yet still slaps me upside the head?
who did he give it to then? Do we know?
I believe. Sorry.
I think he gave it to the leaders who agreed to um recognize him as emperor
I believe
and
so.
follow him.
You swear fealty to me, I'll give you magic powers.
Done.
Exactly.
So according to TenSoon, the Pac-Men were instead granted immortality in the form of Mistwraith, whom would eventually become the first generation of Kandra. Realizing that the first generation of Kandra are actually ancient terrorist people, they must know of the original terrorist religion, the one him that all keepers have been searching for 1,000 years.
Very dramatic.
Dun, dun,
TenSoon
dun.
agrees to take Sazed with him and show him the homeland of the Kandra, hoping Sazed can help convince them of a coming apocalypse.
I say, not only is it the religion that the terrorist people have been searching for 1,000 years, it's also the only religion that has survived, that has continued to be practiced.
But wait, there's one more.
And I find it so beautiful that Sazed, on the cusp of giving up, of burning away everything that he was, almost literally, this is the book of all of my beliefs, in a way. This is the book in which I worked on with Tindwyl. I was going to burn it away. And yet,
This was my last memory of Tindwyl.
And what saves him? Which religion? His own religion. The religion that he has no idea what it's about. The religion that his people have lost. It's the religion that he knows nothing. Yet it's the one that's giving him safety right now. Beautiful.
Truly a very touching chapter, I would say.
Very much. And I wanted to, now that we have this huge reveal, there was something about the Kandra I always had a sort of headcanon about. The first generations were humans, and they got to pick and mold the second generations. The second generations were basically molded to be the perfect what we want you to be. We design you this specific way. You are basically slaves, in a sense. We designed you. The second generations then trained the thirds, correct? The thirds are therefore born of Kandra, formed by Kandra, and are allowed to be their own. These are the first true Kandra, in a sense. The seconds were just what the first wanted them to be. The first weren't real Kandra, but the thirds are the first true Kandra. And the fact that TenSoon is of the third generation, and he has all these thoughts about himself, and he's able to think and recognize, I think shows that this is what a true Kandra is like. And then the Force, basically, the seconds were like, okay, we're just going to beat you back into place. The Force became, was it the Force and fifths were basically, yeah. And then you got sixth. I don't remember anything about the sixth.
The 6th and the 7th, they started to give to the thirds to start training.
And those are also the ones that we saw with Milan and the ones who are thinking still. So I have this headcanon that the true Kandras were the ones that were not made to be in somebody's image.
So they were the ones kind of, out of all of them, they were the ones that were born as Khandras and grew up thinking in that mentality, like weren't
Yes.
molded by the experiences of people that
They're
started
the
out their
truth.
lives as humans. That's cool.
Anything else for this mind-blowing chapter of 62? No? Okay, great. Okay, I will not read the entire epigraph.
Thank
We
you.
we learned that Ruin has, over the course of either just the last year or before, tried to get spikes in the crew and other important figures. But even for Ruin, getting the metal into a bind point is very difficult. So it's a lot of credit that Spook picked up. That's a lot of credit that that one guy stabbed through the other guy, hit Spook in the exact spot, broke off the sword. It's pretty amazing, to be honest. And we also learned that Ruin actually did manage to get a spike into Yomen once. And that Yomen, who was analytical, logical, basically a Vulcan, realized I can pull this out. It's affecting my judgment. I will do so. And pulled it out. So
That speaks a
I
lot
have
to
to
Yolen. I like him as like a villain / antagonist in this book because he's actually pretty smart.
Yes, but I have to wonder, did Rashek specifically train obligators in that way, where they would view things logically and, if ever spiked, recognize that they were being affected?
I think that's partially just Yeoman.
I think it's partly because of their exposure to the Inquisitors.
I like to
I
think
mean-
Yeoman's special, but I also think Rashek and all of his planning would have, like, anti-hemalurgic interference training. Vin tries to question Ruin. No worries. Vin tries to question Ruin, but he just talks in poetic references of the current events. He says most of this is the Lord's ruler's fault. Vin thinks back to the well and wonders what happened to the liquid, Preservation's mind, that was keeping him there. She asks him why he's so enamored by the Lord Ruler when he's the one who trapped him. She then realizes that Ruin must be stalling, and that if she wants to stop him, she needs to leave this room. Then asks a guard to bring her to Yomen and says she can give him information. A short while later, they do, much to Ruin's confusion. I had a quick question. Ruin keeps describing how amazing that the ash mounds smogging up the sky and the earthquakes and all that. Is Ruin having an easier time destroying Schedule because Rashek pushed it to the edge?
Yes.
If he were to try to do this on Earth, would he have the same level of success? Would it take him longer?
I would guess it would take him longer because on Scadrial, the ash mounts were already like puffing ash into the sky consistently, clogging up the atmosphere, and so he had to do very little to just like increase the production of ash.
Just saying the pieces were kind of already in place. Like, if it was on Earth, he could maybe accelerate, like, global warming or something, but he would have to...
Oh, jeez.
He couldn't just make it rain fire, like...
Yeah.
For no reason.
Well, there's the volcano under Yellowstone he could have blown up.
And those was aliens in the Miami Mall.
Those weren't aliens, they're Floridians.
Florida man has
What's the difference?
ascended to a higher
Again.
plane. Vin is brought to Yomen, and she is surprised that he doesn't seem to be using pewter to keep himself awake, like a true Mistborn would. Vin says that she's prepared to answer his questions. Yomen asks how Alendi is controlling the Colossus, and Vin answers truthfully, adding in information on Duralumin as well. Both Yomen and Ruin are impressed and confused. Then Vin begins to explain what she knows about the caches.
Caches. You had it first, right? The
Okay.
first time.
I swear I've heard it pronounced caches. Yeoman seems to believe her, but is still confused on the connection between her and the Lord Ruler. Vin tries to imply that it was his plan for them to meet here. Ruin applauds in the background. A map is brought in, and Vin marks the locations of the caches. She realizes each city has some sort of metal export and asks for another map, this one of mineral deposits. It's brought in, and they overlap perfectly. Vin remembers Kawan's words and realizes that Ruin cannot see through or around metal. Then she realized that they did it for him, following the maps to each cache with him watching. And now, finally, she realizes why. Ruin wanted the ATM, and somehow he had forced that desire to find it onto her. The door swings open, thunder claps, wind rushes in, blowing out all the lights. Everybody turns to see a hooded figure slowly take it off, and then a familiar Inquisitor arrives. Marsh. He bows to Ruin, then tells Yeoman that Ellen plans to attack. As Yeoman orders soldiers to defend, Marsh asks for the ATM, but Yeoman says he never had it, that it was a trick. Ruin's Reen form falters for a moment, turning into the same black smoke Vin saw at the well. They all see Ellen's camp beginning to break down, ready to attack now that their surprise is gone. Yeoman begs Marsh for help, but he says that he'll die just like the Lord Ruler did. But then Vin has an idea and speaks up. Ellen won't attack, she announced. Quote. She tries to convince him that Ellen won't, and Marsh mocks her newfound idealism and says already Ellen belongs to Ruin. Vin doesn't believe him, and she remembers her assault with Zane and knows attacking would be the smart thing I do, but it wouldn't be the Ellen thing to do. Ellen won't attack, she said quietly, because he's a better person than I am. End quote.
And thus begins the word avalanche we call the Sanderlanche. Kablow!
Kablow.
I don't know, Vin. Ellen has been doing a lot of attacking this past year.
And he kind of ordered it to happen, so Vin might be wrong.
They've kind of swapped places because, like, in Well of Ascension, that book started out like she would have murdered an entire army to save Ellen.
She killed Sean to save him. Shan, sorry. Sean. My pronunciations are off. I swear I've heard it pronounced cachet. I swear I've heard it pronounced
You
cachet.
probably have. Some military typey folks like to do that, but that's just not as, I don't know.
Anything we would like to talk about in this chapter? The realization that Ruin has been using Vin the entire time. He's after the ATM, something we've known, but something Vin now knows. Marsh is here now. And he's not the Marsh we once knew.
That's so sad.
There's still this question of, like, why does Ruin want the ATM? What, we can't even use it except for the few of us that are Mistborn. What does Ruin want with it, And so, like, obviously us who have read the books, like, we know kind of the answer to that, but I still like this idea of, like, we only have 100 pages left, 200.
We're almost in the final 100.
And it's just like this is the third book of the trilogy, and it's like still we have all these mysteries and all this stuff to wrap up.
It's coming.
Let's
Look to the north at dawn of the third day.
Calm down, Gandalf. We shall technically get to the final 100 in chapter 70.
I also like that Marsh has become the steel face of death.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
He might as well be riding on a pale horse at this point.
Well, next time we're going to be covering the next 5 chapters, which will be chapters 64, 65, 66, 67, 68. John, I know you have claim on 2. However, you're going to need to bring that down to 1. Pick your favorite, because we're going to have another special guest on next week's episode. Big surprise. I've been trying to do that more, and I'm glad it has been enjoyed so far. It is now time to head into the spoiler realm. So if you have not finished this book, the entire series, or potentially the entire Cosmere, then we recommend you to stop here because it is likely that we will talk about everything and anything. But if you are up to date, feel free to stick around because it is likely that we will bring up details you may have missed or plot threads still yet to come. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, or whatever it is on this podcast, and don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions to cosmereconnectionspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. But if this is where we must part, then my name is ReaderWarrior, and I have been joined by Swiggity Swoo,
There's 2 of me now?
John.
I was a Condra the whole time.
I should have known. And Kay.
Hey Alexa, play Losing My Religion by REM.
Everybody's
And
Alexa
don't forget-
at home. It just went off.
I hope you've been wearing headphones.
Playing Sausage's theme song.
Yep.
And don't forget, there's always another connection. Bye-bye. And we're back! Spoilers!
Spoiler time.
Spoilers. So, chapter 59. So, human's backstory. TenSoon shows up.
TenSoon, his first outing as a dog.
Yeah, woof woof.
How did he think to go to Orto? Did we find that on the previous?
He found, yes, in the previous chapters when he was in Luthadel, he talked to the guards as Kelsier.
Right, right.
Found out that some of Ellen's soldiers had gone up to Urto.
Can you imagine if you walked into that city, Kelsier? This town has had enough of Kelsier.
Right.
That would be the ultimate, just like, what? Now I don't know what to believe, dang it.
Belger's brother's like, I'm so glad I don't. I'm like, hello there. No, not again.
Imagine Spook waking up and seeing him too. Like, oh God.
What are you doing here? Okay.
I've been a
Anything for
dog this
chapter
whole
50?
time. Wait, what? No, I'm even more confused.
Anything for chapter 59? I don't think there's really any spoilers in that.
There really weren't.
No. I don't think we're going to get a lot of spoilers at all soon.
No, I think going forward, it's pretty much the reveals.
Yeah.
Chapter 60. So the prison is Preservation's mind, correct?
It is Preservation's consciousness,
Yes.
to be exact.
Okay, that's always kind of confused me a bit. It's consciousness locking up consciousness.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree. That to me is so confusing. I don't know
Because
what that means.
the power couldn't hold back the power because Preservation was weaker. But their consciousness were still on equal level.
Yeah, so Preservation locked Ruin's consciousness away in a prison and used his consciousness to create it, and in the process also took some of Ruin's power and hid it away.
So is it kind of like to control like Marsh, for example, Ruin has to be kind of focused on him. Is it kind of like he just put all of his focus into that prison?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think there was, I don't remember what the specific line, but there was a comment where Vin was like, did he have ATM? It was like he had never used it before or something. There was something about it in this chapter.
No, it was that she was like, because she noticed that he isn't burning pewter, and that it's clear that he is not a trained warrior. I think it was something about that.
I wonder if Brandon was trying to hint at the possibility that he was spiked with an ATM spike or something.
No, he's trying to hint at the fact that he's not a Mistborn.
Yes, but Brandon always gives the hint of what it is and the hint of what it could be. And I'm wondering if that was a distractionary hint of what it could have been. Since we've had all this comments about spikes and all.
I don't know. I don't think so. Mostly because, well, I guess we did get we've only had one reveal that someone got a power from a spike, kind of, and the fact that there is no obvious thing on him, on Yolen.
Well, two. Spook and the Citizen.
Yeah. But we don't know that like, Quellion had any power from it.
The epigraph said it made him a seer. Not a seer, a seeker.
Seeker.
Oh, it did. Okay. I missed that. I didn't remember that.
It was a bit
Because that's
ago.
how he was finding all the mistings to execute.
That makes sense.
Comment how my god is less gone than yours, and I'm like, Kelsier's less gone than Rashek at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but nobody knows that.
Yeah, but it's the fun of it.
Still the irony.
Mm-hmm. And
What?
Then there's the thing about ATM. Sorry.
What is Kelsier doing at this stage?
He has preservation's power.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's just sort of arguing with Ruin a lot.
Yeah.
Distracting him, driving him mad.
Trying to do things, but trying to figure out how to influence things without Ruin pushing back and preventing him from doing things.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool.
Anything
so,
else first?
like, in a way.
And he's talking to Spook, because Spook is passed out.
The very next chapter, in the first chapter of the next chapter set, is Spook waking up and having a message.
Oh my god. That's so cool.
Yep,
And
so that is
Guess
actively
who's
what Kelsier
back,
is doing.
bitches.
Kelsier, back in your hole. Yeah.
See, guys, he's not so
You
bad.
cannot kill me.
He gets a bad
I am
rap.
up.
Anything else for chapter 60?
I like this first. I should have said this in the main part, but I like the first line. Like, the best way to fool someone in Ben's estimation was to give them what they wanted, or at least what they expected. As long as they assumed that they were one step ahead, they wouldn't look back to see if there were any steps that they'd completely missed. And that just like reminds me of what Ruin did to lead them to the well and get them to release it.
Yeah. 61? 61. They could have, grown something underground or in the mist, but they got tricked. Because when you're dealing with the ash falling from the sky or the mist that is killing people, you're going to start focusing on the mist that are killing people.
Yeah.
You're not going to realize the ash is the problem until too late. Ellen returns.
Ellen is not going to attack.
No, he is not.
Spoiler
'Cause
alert, he's
he's
not
a
actually
good
going
man.
to attack. He's a good man, but Ruin's gonna make him attack.
He's a good little
Yeah.
boy. The beginning of like the epigraph is really thematically cool because like the preservation is the mists, and so this all starts out like the mists are killing people, the mists are evil, but no, actually not.
It was ruined the entire time.
Yeah.
Lurking in the shadows. Oh! There was a brief little reference of Janarle in this chapter, who was Strathventure's General Janarle.
Janarle.
And he became the king of the city where Strath was coming from. Urto, yes. Brandon wrote in the annotations a really messed up ending for him. So, as Quellion began to revolt against the new empire, Janarle fled from Urto. On his way through the Norman dominance, he was attacked by Koloss and transformed into one. He took part in the Battle of Hassan as a Koloss, but did not make it to the front lines, and likely died when the sun rose and began burning everything.
Whoa.
Well, that's that.
So he becomes a Koloss?
Yeah.
Brutal.
He could very well be one of the Koloss in the group right now.
I don't... Maybe.
Possibly in the ones that Ellen just brought back.
But, I mean, the Northern Dominance is really far away from where Fatrix is, so...
But it was also when he got overthrown, which was a bit ago.
Yeah, so it could be, maybe, but...
Perhaps.
They wouldn't be able to recognize him, would they?
No. Probably not. Man, I should have been paying attention to the annotations. I feel like I've missed so much.
I like it. I like it a lot. They're cool. We should keep going with this.
I will do my best. Anything else for 61? Okay.
Nope.
62. So the Seeker comment was Alendi is literally one of the first Allomancers ever. Because the mists are now snapping people. Alendi was snapped. He was a mist-sick person. And so this is the first time the mists have probably appeared. The deepness has come. So it came, snapped him. He's one of the very first Allomancers ever to exist on Scadril. It was just, when I think about it more, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just, I always thought, like, it was basic rules. He was an Allomancer, got beat when he was young, was a Seeker the entire time.
But it's just this idea of, like, how rare they were back in the day and how, like, now everyone that has Allomancy pretty much comes from those beads at the well, but, like, this was something more. This was, like, almost like he was chosen by preservation.
Yeah.
That is cool. Was it, like, was he kind of this might sound really, really obvious, but, like, was he, like, the idea was he was, like, the hero of ages in times past? Like, Alendi was supposed to be?
No. Because he was supposed to let Ruin out.
He would have done what Vin had done.
Okay, so, like, the hero would be somebody who takes the power, is the idea.
He would have done what Vin had done, but Preservation also knew that Rashik would ruin that, do the 1,000 years, and eventually Vin would release it. It was all in a preparation to get Sazed
So it was always Sazed.
kneeling there.
It's not like this
Yes.
thing that repeats. It's like it was always Sazed, even back then.
Yes, it's not the Wheel of Time.
It was always Sazed. It was always Preservation had always set up Vin to be the one to take up his powers once he died to kill Ruin.
Sort of like a Dumbledore raising Harry to basically die situation. Dun, dun, dun. Now that the spike is gone, Spook is just a Tin Eye again. I really can't believe I did not realize that the Ghost Blood symbol was a Merrill.
Mm-hmm.
Seems so obvious in hindsight.
Well, we also didn't have a picture of a Merrill flower.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, we didn't have a picture of the Ghost Blood symbol. We just had a description.
Yeah.
And the description lent itself to a number of different interpretations. So it took a little while before we got, what was actually going on.
But it makes perfect sense.
My question...
Well, yeah, of course, now.
Yeah.
What... So, I'm assuming this is like a drawing of the flower. They didn't
It's
have
the 3
photocopies.
It is a copy of a copy of a copy of a description of a flower.
Okay, because I was thinking this today, like, this would be like a relic. Like, this thing would almost be disintegrated. Like, if it's from back before...
No, it is a copy of a copy of a picture of a description that a keeper had in their memory.
But I have to wonder if somebody had realized the paper was getting bad, pulled out a new piece of paper and copied it physically.
Well, yeah.
So it is basically the original paper just redone.
Yeah, but it's still
Could Ruin change it?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be real. He just turns it into a middle finger.
That's dark.
Sazed opens up the last faith, and it's just a Ruin giving him a big old ass.
It's just a butt cheek. No! You ruined.
If you think about it, the Ghost Blood symbol is basically to a Merwell flower what a child's star is to a star.
Yeah. A pentagram.
Yeah.
That's what the pentagram has become.
Wait, can you explain that? What do you mean?
So the Ghost Blood symbol is it's like a line drawing of the flower, right? It's not detailed, it's just the basic shapes. Kind of like how a star is kind of just the basic shape.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Which is kind of cool because the drawing was a drawing of a drawing of a drawing.
Right. Yeah.
An extrapolation.
We have the Holy Fudge moment. I don't think we need to go into detail in the spoiler section.
I'm glad we did cover it in the Well of Ascension, the whole thing of it being changed, and when you went over all the different changes, if you want to go back to our previous season, Reader went through and found all the changes that were made.
Check out these specific chapters.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't going to read all that. Not again. Speaking of which, I should really go back and go through every single religion Sazed has talked about in preparation for his ascension. Oh, think about it. Anything else for 62? 63.
Ruin played his hand too early.
Yes, he started to
God.
monologue.
Got a little
Yeah.
impatient.
He got a little impatient. He thought that he had won.
Yeah. When Ruin is stalling, when he's just monologuing to Vin in the jail cell, is he stalling for Marsh to arrive,
Mhm.
or is he just stalling for like the world dying in general?
I think it's Marsh arriving specifically. I mean, he's also just like stalling in general. But I think in this case it was intentionally for Marsh arriving because I think he didn't want her to be there when Marsh arrived.
Mm-hmm. Really quickly in the epigraph, we talk about the spikes and how Bind Point getting there is very difficult, and that Yolen once had a spike. What power would Yolen have received? What power do you think Ruin would have bestowed on him to try to control him, or to make it seem like he had been blessed by the Lord Ruler?
Wakefulness.
Probably some either soothing or riding.
I don't think so. I would think it's more of like copper, and like Ruin's got to know that ATM mistings exist, or the possibility of them exists, right? So like to have an ATM misting and then have them have a cloud to hide that pulse, I think of would have matched well.
I guess I
'Cause,
was more
like,
going
emotion-
off like him being a leader at this stage.
Yes, but he doesn't seem to be the one to give like enthusiastic speeches. He's not Ellen's like being passionate. He's just being logical. Here are the facts. Here's why I'm doing this.
Fair
And,
fair
like,
point.
he's not gonna probably be taking pewter or steel or iron.
If he had electrum.
He would have been very confused. Yeah. Ruin overplayed his hand. Then realizes that Ruin cannot see metal. Is it see? There's like a brightness around metal because metal is invested, right?
Yes, metal is invested, so they kind of just see like a bright light kind of around the metal. We'll see a better description. Yeah, we'll be able to see the description when Vin eventually ascends. I think she mentions it when she looks down at the world. But I think it's like like a bright light that kind of blinds
Mm-hmm.
the shard.
Yeah. Vin was compulsed, that was the word I was looking for, to search for the ATM, even though Ellen and Yeoman have been like, why would you want an ATM? It's kind of useless at the end of the world.
You mean compelled?
Compelled, yeah. Compulsed. Is that even a real word?
Might not be a word.
Don't think that's a word.
I'm gonna Google it real
I was
quick.
just gonna let it slide.
I couldn't. I'm too much of an asshole.
Compulsed to cause someone by force to be or do something. To obtain by force.
Nice.
Ha!
Are you making that up?
No, I googled
kidding,
compulsed.
I believe you.
I'm right, you're wrong. Shut up. It goes back to Vin's earring, which is really obvious in hindsight. Ay.
It is frustrating on a reread to know and to be like, how are you not getting this? How is no one getting this?
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm listening to the Cosmere reads, and they are on Hero of Ages now as well. And back when they were on Well of Ascension, they brought up in like episode 1, maybe Elend and Vin are a tough time because Elend only knew Vin as Valette, and he never actually knew maybe he doesn't like her. And I'm like, wow, that never crossed any of our minds. We were going over that. We're just like, yep, Elend and Vin, they're great.
Well, it's also because we all know like how it ends, so we're like, yep, they're gonna get married. Fantastic, love them.
Yes. It's like there is a bit of bias in our minds where we're not exactly thinking of all the what ifs we might have had all those years ago when we read these books.
Mhm.
I also kind of think there's a lot of Vin in Valette. Like, she was exploring a different side of her personality, but I feel like it was still her a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you 100% on that.
These yeoman's troops begin to prepare for an attack, and yeah, Kay's right. Elend is not going to attack. He's going to ask Cam, hey, are we making the right decision? No! Okay. Is Set going to try to stop us? And he can bite at our ankles.
The ankle biters. So going back to like what you said about thinking how cool it was about this is going way back, but like the gods having to put their trust in people. Like we totally see that like to the biggest degree. Like we see that in Stormlight, right? And we see that in every other Cosmere world, it feels like.
To stay on Mistborn, I would say we see it in like Era 2, how Harmony made this plan to get Wayne to the point where he's deactivating that bomb, and the 500 things that had to lead up to that point.
Yeah, very much so. But I just wanted to point that out of being such a true theme.
Yeah, it's very much so, because we also see it on, well, especially when on any planet that has a active
Future Sane Shard.
Shard, because we see that in Warbreaker as well with Light Song, like her bringing Endowment bringing Light Song back from the dead and giving so that he would be in the right place at the right time to be able to help the God King.
Or in Rhythm of War with Cultivation and Terravodium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, excited for that. Oh boy.
And in
Hey, it's pretty
Stormlight
much
5,
in 11 months.
when Kaladin and Zeth kiss for the first time,
Yeah.
that was all Odium's plan this whole time.
I don't know, that part when Moash just like turned completely good, took over him his legacy. Like, man, that was absolutely amazing.
I don't know what you said because it cut out, but it sounded like
Yeah, this whole thing going.
it sounded like Sanderson himself was like, no, don't reveal the truth. Cut the feed.
Well, okay, I'll restate it. What about the scene where we have Moash turning good and taking the Stormfather after Dalinar names him his legacy son?
No.
What about that whole part?
No.
No.
This is not okay. You need to go and do 50 Hail the Stormfathers.
Honor was like shutting me down. That's what was happening. It wasn't Brandon trying.
You need to go and do penance.
Yeah.
Ruin's knocking at my door. He's like, you need to take that.
You're rude.
Okay, anything else for this chapter set?
I have been just demoralized at this point. I think I need to go take a nap and cry.
I'm sorry.
Well, we always end on.
I thought it was ridiculous and funny.
Oh, it was
Okay.
ridiculous, alright.
It wasn't funny, though. Okay. that's just about going to cover it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us in our ramblings and predictions. We cannot wait to cover what is next. This has been Cosmere Connections, and we hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Adios. Who are involved in the cat's life weren't too keen on that, so we had to make a compromise.
But those are such good names.
I know. I was totally down. Like, I was really digging Renette for a name for her, but nobody else was interested. So I was like, all right.
You know, when I
a
have my
shame.
firstborn child, I can just picture it now. What do you mean I can't name a maiden now? Sam will remember our plight eventually. It's beautiful.
That is an amazing name. I guess you're just gonna have to go with
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, yeah.
Jeffrey,
or
yeah.
Doug.
Poor Doug.
Doug.
Jeffrey, Doug. White.
He was a barbarian gnome that thought he was a giant, and he died fighting a vampire spawn, I think it was. Considering I was basically soloing him, of course, but like he died, the battle ended basically because I brought him down to like 1 and somebody fireballed him, and then we ended it. And so, like, if we had our other 2 players, he might have lived. So I'm really hoping next week everybody is there and we can all mourn my character. So I'm just going to be sitting there like, this is great.
So what are you gonna do for your next character then?
I'm thinking of a dragon-born rogue, which is going to be named Camouflage. Because
My cousin did that, and we called him Boots.
Nice. Or I'm going to just do Kaladin the Paladin.
You did that already, though.
Yeah, I'll be
You
bringing
should-
him back.
The next time
Also,
I play a
I
D&D
feel
character.
I feel like Adolin would be more of a paladin.
Yeah, but it doesn't have Kaladin the Paladin.
That's,
Adolin the Paladin.
Yeah.
is that really how
maybe.
Cal got his name, though?
Who knows?
'Cause that would be
I really want to
disappointing.
do a bard paladin. He would be an ex-military chaplain who left the military and joined a church in his like local village, and he did all of the church music. So that was his thing. He was the music coordinator at his local church after leaving the military.
John,
Go ahead and steal it. It's okay.
have you ever seen MASH?
Yes.
Father Mulcahy.
Yes.
Here we go again.
Yeah. So I'm playing a D&D
Masscast.
campaign right now, and all of the people in the campaign are either gnomes or dwarves. So
Nice.
we're just the short people, and as colloquially known as some of the people that we have worked with as the ankle biters.
Nice.
Because we're all shorter than 4 feet tall, 4 foot. So, like, my character's the tallest. She's a dwarf, and she's 4'1". So we're all tiny. It was really funny the first session when we were like, we're walking through the woods, and Christian.
Somebody starts singing
Christian-
"Hi ho."
Christian was the DM, and he was like, "There's a log in front of you," and we're like, "How tall's the log?" And he's like 3 feet, and we're like, So it became this whole like,
Hut, 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 hut.
like, just to get over this log because we're all tiny. It's like just a simple, like 3 foot. That's not that tall, but for people who are all 3 feet tall, it's...
I tried to make Orlelur as small as possible, and I wanted to do basically single family household where his mom was a tinkerer, but he always envisioned his dad, and he was one time he read a book as a child which was about giants, and now he wants to find giants to find his dad, and he has to accept like he was never going to be that. His father was a nobody, probably. It's just I had a whole character in my mind, and most likely have been drawn out, but that's where the inspiration came.
Instead, he
That's
goes
fun.
squish.
Yeah, instead, he's dead. And either they're going to somehow bring him back, so I'm keeping the character sheet, or I've got to bring in a new character.